thanks to all of you who are tuning in to this webinar. I'll begin with a little bit more explanation and background on the report we'll be reviewing. This is a seventh of a series. I've been writing reports on workforce optimization technologies for, I guess, going back 12 years now, and we have a great tracking mechanism to be able to see what's changed year to year because we do these reports in the same way year after year. The research itself was conducted through secondary research and executive interviews with industry leaders, and it includes forecasts, market shares, detailed vendor profiles. It's a very comprehensive report, 190 pages, and obviously we won't be talking about very much of it today. What we will try to do is talk about trends. So next slide, please. Okay. There are actually 35 trends identified in this report. We broke them into three categories. What I call environmental or global trends, such as the state of the economy. Then contact center trends, which might be changes in labor practices or perhaps new technology. And then the vendor trends. These all relate to each other. As something happens at a global level, it filters down to the contact center and eventually to vendors such as VPI. We're going to talk about just six of the 35. One is service as a competitive differentiator, something I'm sure we're all familiar with in our businesses. We'll talk about managing the customer experience. Hold on to what you've got talks about the importance of maintaining existing customers. Personal touch, personalization is a very important trend today. We'll be discussing that. I'll also spend some time on business intelligence. This has been a very significant force for me over the years as I've tried to explain to the people I deal with how important it is to garner valuable information out of the contact center, which is sitting on virtual gold mines of data, which sometimes isn't carefully utilized. And finally, we'll talk about increasing regulatory requirements. Okay, well, let's start with service as a competitive differentiator. Obviously, you all know about this because you do it every day. It may be interesting to know how important that is. According to some research done by Data Monitor, customer service costs $338 billion globally. We have some other statistics here which back up the importance of service as a competitive differentiator. But beyond what's on the slide, we see and hear advertisements all the time. If somebody achieves a major service award, we talk about that in our advertising. A J.D. Powers award is, like the Super Bowl to big companies. And companies have done extremely well over the years are also the most profitable ones. This has been established. The companies that have excelled are Enterprise Rental Car, Amazon, Zappos, Albertson Groceries, Chick-fil-A, and USAA Insurance, as well as many others, which I don't have time to mention. So finally, and I think this is very important, that 92% of people surveyed believe that recommendations from friends and family are more important than advertising. And I don't think we must fully appreciate the significance of that statement. That means the influence that we project when we talk to customers is more important potentially than those millions and billions of dollars we spend on advertising.
Well, thank you, Dick. This means then that the need for customer intelligence became a high priority. And so let's update our existing processes to reflect that. In this chart that is based on call center IQ report, we see that QA is now embracing customer intelligence. That's a very good trend. And as you can also see, almost half of call centers already train their agents based on QA scores instead of just the generic classroom training. And analytics is gaining acceptance quite rapidly for selection of calls for evaluation. There are many ways to go about it, and some of them use automated QA workflows. And I think it's also quite interesting to see speech analytics included in these charts for automated scoring. We will get into that in a few moments. First call resolution. Well, measuring it is no longer optional, especially since this is one of the most important indicators of your customer satisfaction. All of us know it, and these statistics confirm it. Customer satisfaction goes downhill if they have to make more than one call to resolve their same issue. And as we can see, there is also a direct correlation of gains in FCR to gains in CSAT. And so it's no wonder that FCR has been on the radar of many call centers for a while. Hopefully all of you have it on yours. There are many ways to measure it. My pie chart here gives you a summary. Some of these methods are more accurate than others. So here is one recommendation for measuring FCR in a way that shows reality accurately and without relying on agent opinions that might be subjective or biased. So let's begin with the definition. For most of us, FCR is the percentage of calls that do not result in a repeat contact by the customer regarding the same issue, like same order or the same service ticket. And it should be within a specific period of time. Usually it's 1 month. Now, all of this information can be gleaned from your ACD or IVR or CRM data. There's nothing subjective in that. Data is quite black and white. And if we attach this data to our calls, then we can run reports about it and identify true FCR quite easily. Some performance management systems can also send automated notifications to your managers, like when your VIP customer has to call many times because of some unresolved issue. And here we are back to speech analytics. They are getting really good at identifying repeat calls or unresolved issues. While CRM data that we just spoke about can help us locate all repeat calls, monitoring speech in customer calls helps us identify reasons for these calls and to find out what issues are behind customer calls that go unresolved most often. Managers can work on resolving the internal or upstream issues to eliminate reasons for repeat calls. For example, here I have a couple of categories. One is for unresolved calls that would automatically collect anything that contains phrases like keeps happening, never heard back, I'm still having the same issue, anything like that. But even without speech analytics, these issues can be tracked in your QA forms, QA evaluation forms. Simply add a question or two to existing forms to focus on this. Here are some examples of questions that you can add to your QA forms to track reasons for unresolved calls. Is it a problem of our agents, or does the issue reach beyond agents? And what are the categories of issues that cause most of our repeat calls? Now, speech analytics can also help with automation of this categorization. And the beauty of that is also that it can look for the information like that in all of your calls. Now, an outsourcing services provider named Upsource, they took customer satisfaction and first call resolution very seriously. Everyone at that organization was challenged to improve these metrics based on their individual responsibilities. They still continue to randomly select calls for evaluation of compliance, because that is still important to them. But they also added targeted call selection, such as those calls where CSAT fell below 70%. Those were the calls that received most attention from both QA evaluators and from the trainers. And even agents were engaged in this. They were made accountable and alerts with their real-time updates of QA scores and performance metrics in their tickers, like the one I have here on my screen in the middle, especially when their calls affected FCR and CSAT. This real-time aspect was everybody's favorite, and I personally really like to see the power in this single-minded focus. It's no wonder they improved their CSAT and FCR so dramatically in just 6 months, as you can see in my chart.
Thank you, Katerina. Now let's talk about trend number 2, called managing the customer experience. I've been working in the contact center industry for a dozen years now. And in the early years, the emphasis was on production, getting questions answered quickly, keeping costs down. And there's still a lot of that, and that's one of the important requirements of a successful contact center is to be productive and cost-effective. However, today, and I think for a lot of reasons we've been talking about, we are focused more on the customer experience, not just simply serving that particular need. And I've put a few bullet points here to try to draw a contrast. For example, the nature of interactions themselves. Under the customer service management philosophy, an interaction is a transaction. We've answered a question, we've taken an order, we've solved a problem, we've provided a return authorization, whatever it is. We did it, and it's done. It's like going to a retail store and you check out and you're done and fine. You have made no personal connection at all with the company. You've just completed a task. Customer experience management emphasizes more on exactly that, the whole experience. They treat it as more than an interaction, and therefore the contact should be more of a conversation, and there's an art to that, and I think many of you know a little bit how to do that in terms of probing questions, using the customer's name, looking for cues in the conversation that could lead to valuable insights. Another distinction is the goal of the interaction. Under customer service management, the goal was to satisfy the customer, and this would be measured through CSAT scores. As it turns out, customer satisfaction, just simply being satisfied, is a pretty low bar. Most people that leave a brand are satisfied with it. Satisfaction is hardly a motivating factor. What you want to do is strive to delight, somehow leave a positive impression about that interaction so that it's memorable. And that's, again, is an art form, but it distinguishes service management from experience management. And similar to that is a level of connection. A transaction is a business level. We bought our security, we bought our clothes, we answered a question. But there's no connection afterwards. And the companies are really good at this, like Zappos, for example. Make an experience, engage the customer, learn about the customer, keep careful notes so the next time that person calls, you know what their preferences are, a little bit about their family possibly. The reward system, under the service management philosophy, we reward effort. Well, we really tried hard. We improved on our quality scores. We improved a metric. We've reduced our handle time. We've improved our service level. And all that's well and good, but it doesn't really address the key issue. Have we moved the ball forward? Have we made that customer more loyal? Have we increased revenue? Have we done something that really matters to the enterprise? And that's a little tougher to achieve, but you can put in a reward structure that focuses on that. What did we get? Not so much how we got there. What did we accomplish in the end? In order to do that, it requires a more empowered agent. A very important limitation that we see all the time, as we call call centers ourselves, is the inability of the agent to make a decision. Yes, I had an error on my bill. Well, can you correct it? Well, no, we'll have to talk to accounting. The product was late. Well, can I get a credit? Well, I'll need an okay on it, et cetera, et cetera. These things delay decision-making that affects first call resolution, which Katerina was talking about, and she's absolutely right. First call resolution is highly related to customer satisfaction. Getting that thing resolved at the outset means giving the agent more authority. This is not new. Certain hotel chains, for example, empower their people to provide concessions of up to $1,000 if necessary to keep a very valuable customer.
Well, thank you. Let's illustrate this on something that all of us know quite well, and that's QA. What are we actually measuring with our quality assurance forms and with our choice of calls for audit? If our focus is mainly on compliance with our internal standards, then our agent will be perfectly happy with delivering just that, like my little lady agent here. As long as they comply with that, no need to worry about customer experience, right? And when the choice of calls for QA is completely random, then we will very likely get to listen to a lot of mundane conversations about nothing very important, and we'll miss opportunities to understand and please our customers. We can gain much better insight into the operations if the calls we select for QA are based on content and based on their context as well. One good way to do this is by collecting data about every call from your CRM or another such servicing system that you might have in your center, and adding that data to your call records. And you can also add intelligence about what's going on in calls, from speech analytics to the call records. And then with all this information associated to your calls, you can quite easily categorize them and make smart choices of best and most coachable calls for QA audit. And that should lead to much better insights and decisions if we focus on calls that actually matter or include something interesting. A financial services provider did just that. Like most other call centers, they used to see themselves as mere consumers of vast amounts of data that arrived at them from many sources. But they wanted to get more strategic with their data. They wanted to use it to improve their business performance. And so they started the process of consolidation. Their call recording system now pulls data from the CRM database, and it tags it to calls. Data from both sources now lives in one place, and it became much more consumable, especially now that it arrives to all users in their personalized real-time tickers. This helped everybody focus on the same set of business objectives. There's a real power in sharing information in the same format. They also created categories of calls based on this data, and they loved how it helped them truly focus their QA audits on what matters. In their next step, they broke down their e-learning content into short modules that were somewhere around 5 to 10 minutes to take. And so they could quickly help agents when their knowledge gaps were uncovered through QA evaluations just by providing these quick modules to improve immediately. And results, as you can see, speak for themselves. Now, speech analytics can help us do even better with quality evaluation. Now we can evaluate 100% of calls. We no longer have to play back calls to verify and rate things like were contract terms verified, and was there empathy or proper greeting and closing, and was everything that needs to be verified indeed verified. All these items can be automatically monitored for conformance by speech analytics. By offloading the evaluation of these types of questions from your normal QA process, you can shorten the number of questions in your go-to QA forms by as much as 80% easily, to allow your QA analysts to just focus on specific skills like accuracy or product knowledge or active listening or anything else that requires subjective assessment. Now, it's important to note that no speech analytics is going to be 100% accurate. That's just due to factors like accents or dialects or just bad phone connection. But it doesn't really have to be to provide a score of the approximate percentage of calls where the phrase was or was not said by the customer or the agent. For example, if a supervisor looks at the scorecard in my example here, they can see that there's a good probability that the agent, Stacy Adams, is not properly saying the call recording disclaimer or verifying contract terms on a substantial portion of her calls. Now we know what to focus on with Stacy. And your analytics-driven QA scorecard, it could have any combination of items, or it could just look like hours here, this one, with speech analytics automatically scoring agent conformance in a top section, and QA evaluators still manually reviewing a limited number of calls each month and scoring the skills that show up in the bottom section of my scorecard.
Thank you, Katerina. Let's talk about trend number 3. I call it hold on to what you've got. And this underlies the importance that businesses consider the importance of keeping their customers. This is now a top priority among organizations, especially those that depend on recurring revenue, such as magazines and wireless services and cable and that type of thing, insurance companies. Some of these metrics are pretty impressive. Top 10 retail banks losing up to $200 billion from customer defection. So brand loyalty is very, very valuable, and many studies have shown that companies that can hold on to customers will be more profitable, and they'll save money. Estimates range from it costs as much as 5 to 7 times as much to replace a customer as to keep one. And this goes back to what we were saying earlier about providing more authority to the agent to solve problems, and that's why so many organizations are extending more authority today to do that. Next slide, please.
Okay, thank you, Dick. So now we can better appreciate various types of information that will help us categorize calls, and how call data and screen data and events and spoken phrases all contribute to pieces to the customer satisfaction puzzle. Now we know what to do about calls, such as when the word ridiculous comes up. Based on KPMG insurance study, ridiculous is a very dangerous word when it comes up in a conversation between your agents and your customers. And it does not matter who says it, if it's an agent or customer. It's always a strong predictor of customer churn. You would certainly want to know, what about your service seems so ridiculous? So you can eliminate the reason for these kinds of statements and the reasons for your customers looking out to competition. Now, here we have some additional examples of how speech analytics can help us identify categories of calls where different customer issues are tracked. Now, I have 2 different areas of phrase collections, that's agent and customer. That's because the same phrase can have a different meaning depending on who says it. Was it your agent or was it your customer? For example, guarantee could indicate a customer commitment when your customer says it. That's pretty good. But it likely means trouble when your agent gives guarantees. Now, let's take a look at the experience of Norfolk Southern. Their agents and managers gained peace of mind regarding compliance, and they even learned to like quality evaluation. Their business is very regulated, and that adds yet another dimension to the importance of QA evaluation. It was very important for them to find calls where breach may have occurred. That's where speech analytics was very helpful. They created various categories of calls that they wanted to monitor. And then speech analytics system matched all of their calls against their criteria, and it saved them in those categories or buckets. Now they can much better monitor compliance. And as a bonus, they even gained some unexpected insights into opportunities for increased revenues. And they automated call selection for evaluation based on CRM data. Now that the computer does call selection, agents can no longer complain about partiality. That's what they used to do a lot before. And evaluators don't have to stress about picking a call for QA that would lead to agent complaints or worse yet, union complaints. And the entire QA process became much more productive. And of course, their customers could see and appreciate that difference. Dick?
We're seeing it in every type of business we participate in anymore. It used to be that products were fairly standard. In fact, I've been in telecom industries in introduction for 30 years, and I can remember very well when you could go to your phone company, and that's the only place you could get a phone. It might be available in 6 colors, maybe 3 or 4 styles, and it could be touch-tone or rotary. Go into any wireless store today, and there's more types of phones and devices than you can keep track of. Similarly, there's so much variety in the types of bundles and types of prices available. Personalization is a marketing tsunami, according to Forbes, and it's being enabled by advances in technology. For example, more products today are software-based. It's easier to make changes to software than it is to hardware. It's possible, particularly in our industry, to receive products via the cloud, which also provides more ability at one level to customize the products. What's driving this trend toward personalization? Well, one is demographics. We're seeing the emergence of the millennial generation. They are rejecting some of the old truisms of their prior generation of desire for the latest and the greatest in terms of products and possessions. They're more functionally oriented, more cost-oriented. You're seeing the emergence of smaller cars now. Families are changing. It's unusual for a family anymore to have more than 2 children. People are marrying later, so this is affecting the purchase size. When you go to grocery stores and even automobiles come in different sizes for different types of people. Perhaps most telling about this is that most prominent standardized product purveyors, McDonald's, has seen the light, and they too now are offering a great deal of flexibility. You can order breakfast virtually any time. You can order sandwiches other than cheeseburgers and Big Macs. And, they're continuing to do this. They're struggling because their competition has forced that upon us. And reason competition is because customers are demanding it. How does this impact the contact center? Well, one is the means of communication. Just about everybody, it seems today, over the age of 10 anyway, or maybe 8, has one of these smartphones. And through that's their means of communications. Our children and grandchildren communicate by text anymore. No one seems to want to talk to each other. So this is going to affect the contact center. Are we prepared? Are we accepting text messages? Do we have a means of identifying service levels to support that? What about social media? It's not big yet, and I think there's a strong belief, at least the part of many analysts, that telephone will continue to be by far the predominant means of communication, but others are emerging. So this is something contact centers are dealing with, and also the people who provide quality monitoring services need to be looking at ways to evaluate the performance on IVRs and social media and other things.
Well, thank you. Indeed, the trend towards personalized everything is here to stay. Most of us came to expect it from our service providers. I certainly do. And so it's only natural to expect the same from the tools that we use in our contact centers, right, to serve our customers, and those tools that we use to monitor our own goals and achievements. Today's software allows every employee, whether it's an agent or manager, to have all information they need to be successful right in front of them in tools like stickers and dashboards. It can be personalized and self-updating and keeping everybody engaged as a single shared source of the truth. This works very well for centers who employ home-based agents or remote agents who otherwise feel disconnected or might be difficult to motivate. Now, let's illustrate this with the difference that real-time made for Qualfon. That's another outsourcing service provider. They came to really like their tickers, especially. Qualfon fields customer calls on behalf of multiple organizations, and each of them has a different set of requirements and metrics for measuring results. This variety of needs used to be quite difficult to manage, as you can imagine, and that is why Qualfon adopted agent tickers that pull data from their phone system and CRM system and change metric views based on the type of call that's coming through. The automation they used also helped with sorting out all the QA requirements of each client. They were also all different. QA scores from evaluations are also delivered to agents and supervisors in these same takers. And the team was able to pull together with the common set of tools and improve service quality and satisfaction of their both layers of customers. And the bottom line is showing the fruits of these efforts still, as is their service quality and CSAT.
Thank you, Katerina. Next trend we're going to talk about is the importance of business intelligence. The contact center is a reservoir of extremely valuable information. Without the capabilities of speech analytics, you can't really access that information and draw valuable conclusions from it. So what we have in the enterprise today is data everywhere, and the numbers are astonishing. I think I read somewhere that within hours, Walmart processes more data than exists in the Library of Congress. It keeps growing, and companies have it, but they don't quite know what to do with it. And as a result, they spend a lot of money, $40 billion for business intelligence services and software, trying to glean that little nugget out of these torrents of information they have that will somehow affect their strategy and give them the edge over the competition. I'll talk a little bit about market research. We've all have been called, particularly in this election season, asking about our preferences and behaviors and that type of thing. Common tool used to gather information, but it's expensive, time-consuming, and not that terribly effective. The information they're looking for is often right there in their own contact center. They just don't know how to tap it. So, that is extremely important. I think we need to encourage our contact center managers and agents to probe for the information and make it available. This is a great way to distinguish the importance of the contact center. Contact centers tend to speak their own language using their own metrics, and sometimes get a little bit isolated from the rest of the organization. The management of the company wants to know, why are my customers leaving? What do they like about my products? Are there any safety issues that we need to be aware of? Are we at risk of a lawsuit because of some information? This is the type of thing that may exist in that contact center, and through the magic of speech analytics, you can pull it out. So I finished this slide by saying, business intelligence is your most important KPI, and I'll underline that KPIs don't necessarily have to be numbers. They can be important insights, and there's ways to extract that information, pass it along to management, and reward people for gathering it.
Thank you. Indeed, standard contact center reporting simply cannot deal with the challenge and the opportunity hidden in big data. Contact centers are very technology heavy, more than any other department, and they often use the widest variety of software systems. The latest generation BI systems, like Dick mentioned, especially those that were specifically developed for contact centers, can tame all this data and convert it into one source of truth about everything that's going on in a contact center. And they can present it in a personalized manner that makes sense for each user. BI systems that are enabled for smartphones and tablets make access to personalized and anytime information super convenient. Okay, now we'll move to trend 6,
And this is the growing number of laws and regulations. And we don't have time to go through all these, and this is only a fraction of them. It's estimated there's over 1,000 local regulations, state laws, federal laws that could potentially impact the contact center. A very important development recently, well actually in 2010, was passage of the Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. This is what they typically called Dodd-Frank. It's 830 pages long. There's over 10,000 pages of rulemaking after that. The most significant component of Dodd-Frank was the formation of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This is a very vigilant, very aggressive, very well budgeted and highly keenly staffed organization that looks out for the consumer. And contact centers have already, been have been shown to be at fault in cases because they weren't complying with laws. A good example are 2 years after the passage of the Dodd-Frank Act, six credit card companies were fined or otherwise penalized up to in excess of $600 million for violations, many of which could be traced to absent inability to provide disclosures, required disclosures. I think as Katerina's been talking about, speech analytics provides you a means of determining whether or not these disclosures are being recited properly. And are people answering questions? Are they answering them accurately? Are they qualified to answer the questions? Question may come up on warranty, and if you don't know the facts, you may make promises which are not sustainable. So laws and regulations will continue to be an important trend. It's also an important driver for investing in interaction recording systems and speech analytics. Next slide, please. Finally, I'm going to wrap up by changing directions, talk about drivers. In our massive report, we talk about many drivers at different levels. I want to mention three here. By drivers, I mean reasons why companies such as your own invest in workforce optimization technology. And one important one is value-packed solutions. I've noticed this in my research that today companies such as yours are getting more value for their money. The products are, well, even a few years ago, such things as screen recording were optional. Performance management was option. Many companies today are folding these into their basic product, providing a more useful, more integrated solution. Also, we're seeing more interest in developing cross-channel quality control. I don't think anyone has all the answers yet, but there needs to be a mechanism as well as metrics for measuring performance and other than the voice channel. And of course, compliance management we just talked about. There's always be a very strong driver for investment in recording technology, and it should extend far beyond the contact center. Those of you who are involved in these investments should be sharing your knowledge with other departments, such as the legal department, sales department, purchasing department, human resources for sure. All can benefit from recording technology. Key success factors, well, I don't think we have time to go through these in detail. I don't think there's any big surprises here, but I will just maybe highlight a few things here. Embracing business intelligence. I think that is so very important, and all of you are aware that you have this huge reservoir of data that management is striving for. Management values customer relations, customer loyalty, and they are paying millions and millions of dollars to billions of dollars actually to gain those insights which you may already have. Empowering agents, very important. First call resolution, give agents the power to make decisions. You may want to limit their authority and put some budgetary numbers around it. The contact center I once managed, each agent was given a budget, and you at their discretion how they wish to use it. Purpose-driven call selection, I think Katerina has been talking about that, but quality management now can be focused on specific issues which percolate up from the speech analytics as being areas of further exploration. And finally, speech analytics, I consider that a must-have. I don't think you can provide customer satisfaction, develop customer loyalty, train and motivate customers to provide optimum service to your customers if you don't have speech analytics available. And that kind of wraps up my comments. Oh, I'm sorry, I have one more comment. This is just a slide. A market research presentation wouldn't be right without some numbers, so I pulled these out of the report. And it's just kind of interesting data. It's probably nothing you're going to, treat as a big insight, but it is interesting that North America, the investment per agent for recording is $171, far exceeding Europe and Latin America, which shows, as maybe reflects the society that we are in, and that we are more advanced in terms of adoption of advanced technologies. And this isn't just for interaction recording. All of WFO applications have their beginning here, their adoption here, then they spread to other countries. I think that wraps up my commentary. Thank you very, very much. Sherry, do you want to open it for questions?
Yes, thank you. And we have just a few minutes for questions. Any questions we do not get to, we will make sure to pass those on to Katerina and to Dick. Katerina, the software that does speech analytics, does it also organize data from chat and email?
It could. Some of the analytics systems can process both speech and text. And then if you have one that can do it all, then obviously you have reports that show feedback from every channel. So yes, it's possible.
Okay, good. Thank you. Dick, what metrics do you associate with BI?
Well, that's a good question, Sherry, and I think I mentioned earlier that the metrics, we always think of them as numbers. I don't think they have to be numbers. Insights are very important, even if they can't necessarily be metricized. So I think if I were running a contact center and really wanted to leverage business intelligence, be encouraging agents to probe if someone mentions that they may have had a problem with a product, find out why. And speech analytics can be queued up to determine, probing questions, to kind of getting to the bottom of things. I would encourage agents to flag the calls where they think interesting information had transpired. They picked up some competitive insight, and collect this data, put together weekly or at least bi-monthly reports to management, says here's what important insights, and organize it by the objectives of the company. And this will be very valuable. Again, I don't know if you can put a number on it. We really talk about a qualitative value, but in the eyes of top management, that qualitative insight could be far more interesting to them than some improvement in a specific metric.
Okay, thank you. Katerina, with speech analytics, is there still a need for the traditional QA evaluation?
Oh, yes. Speech analytics is very powerful nowadays, but it still is not, as I said, 100% accurate. So there is still some spot checks needed for calls, especially when those calls are about something that really matters, especially when we are trying to evaluate things that speech analytics just cannot really judge very well, such as if there is good product knowledge or if the right recommendations were made in the context of the conversation. So those types of things you still want to evaluate by subjective reviews.
Okay. Dick, with an automated selection of calls, does that ever come across as unfair to agents?
Yes, it does. This comes from other research I've done, but there's been quite a few studies done, on the whole subject evaluations. A lot of this done by academics, focusing on Far East outsourcers, but also some domestic work, some done in Canada. Basically, what it comes down to is a perception of bias. The supervisor in a contact center typically, advanced to that position because he or she was previously an agent at that point in time. He or she was a colleague of other agents there. Friendships had developed, and there's almost inevitably a sense that particular supervisors are more favorably imposed to others. Also, the very fact that you may not be getting a good sampling. Unfortunately, only about maybe 2 to 3%, if that, usually lower than maybe 1%, of calls are actually analyzed in a quality monitoring interaction. So it's a fair argument on the part of the agent. Well, look, you might have picked my, call that I didn't do very well, but the other 999 calls I did went very smoothly.
Okay. Let's see. That seems to be the questions that we have. So I'm going to ask, from your report, Dick, what do you think is the most important takeaway, if you had to pick one?
Well, I guess if I had to pick one, I would go back to what I've been talking about for a very long time, and that is, let me back up a little bit to say this report that we're talking about concentrated more on interaction recording than the other WFO products, so they did touch on them. But my sense is that we tend to keep our technology to ourselves and not really share it and perhaps promote it within the enterprise. And recording, as well as workforce optimization, other and workforce management, are very valuable for other parts of the organization. So I think it's important for both end users, contact centers, for their own elevation of prestige and recognition within their firms, and for the vendors particularly, to expand utilization. I think of purchasing departments where maybe every day calls are including commitments and deals are being made, and maybe there's a follow-up with a fax or an email, maybe there isn't, but there needs to be a record of these types of things, and the laws are more and more are forcing that. For example, in England, and I think to some degree you'll soon see it in the United States, even calls conducted over wireless phones, which involve investments, need to be recorded. So I think it's very important that companies and contact centers look more broadly at the use of their product and its applications within the enterprise, and also work with their agents to extend more authority so we can help solve problems immediately, and that will build brand loyalty.
Thank you. Katerina, do you have some final thoughts?
Yes, I would just like to remark that what Dick was talking about regarding the application of recording systems throughout the organization, this is not an abstract idea. We actually have been getting inquiries like that from our customers about it. For example, just recording HR interviews. That's very valuable, just to monitor compliance with certain restrictions and various other applications that people come to us with. And I'm pleased to see that this is opening to the entire enterprise, the idea of recording and quality monitoring.
I think a lot of it, Katerina, just to add to your comment, is the issues of liability. There's so many laws, and they don't just affect contact centers, it's enterprise-wide, and a human resources department could be accused of maybe some bias or unfairness in interviews. Mm-hmm. Maybe they ask questions they shouldn't have about age and other things which are, legally protected. And, challenges will come. And if there's nothing to establish exactly what was said, then there's a problem. Also, and let's talk a little bit more broadly about customer satisfaction. We keep discussing this in the context of the call center as if the call center was the end-all and be-all of customer satisfaction. It's not. It's only one piece of a very large puzzle. So I think another important consideration is that the contact center be a force of change throughout the enterprise to instill a customer-first attitude. I recently did some work with Mercedes-Benz, for example, which has an amazing attitude called Customer One, where the entire organization is focused on the customer. And there's an opportunity for the contact center, which has the knowledge and the technology, take a leadership role in promoting that concept throughout the enterprise.
Okay. Good, and we're just about out of time. So as a reminder, the recording will be available in about 24 hours or so, and you find that right on the eSerum Events platform. And tomorrow is the final day of the live sessions, and we start at 12 o'clock with the Math of Contact Center Staffing. So that should be a really good presentation that we have for you tomorrow. So at this point, I want to remind everybody to please visit the exhibit hall, the VPI, their booth. If you just enter in, look around, there's some white papers and case studies and some videos. And just by entering, you are eligible for a drawing for a gift certificate. So we are closing this final session for today. We will see you tomorrow, so have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.